Aloha, cupcakes. Today, let's talk about some of the ways that I go about selecting colors. Now, one, the base coats are usually a reference to whatever it is that I'm going to work with. And a couple of the things that I do is I tend to look for a complementary color. By complementary color, I mean it is similar. So if there's pink and white as my two base coats, I will search for a pink that I think is just a little bit off so that it'll stand out on its own, but still any similar color spectrum of the two colors. The next thing that I'm going to look for is the contrast, which is the opposite, something that's going to stand out against those colors. Now, when you're working with pinks and whites, it's really easy to do what I would also do, which is changing your value. Value is when you choose a darker color and as opposed to looking for like the complementary and contrasting colors. And in this case, my darker color is purple, because honestly, when you put the purple over the black or over the white and the pink, it very much looks like a black. So those are the terminologies that I'm using with this one. I tend to start with something in the darker value. Now, whether that's a contrast or complementary color, that's entirely up to whatever the design is going to work out for me. So in this case, it's a complementary color because it's in that same spectrum of colors. Or actually, it's total opposite. It might actually be a contrast. Honestly, I don't sit and stare at color wheels anymore. I just kind of go for things. But the point of this, and the reason that I'm talking about this at all, is that I have a plan for the colors. So it's not just some random color here, random color there. There's a little bit of method to it. So I start with my darker color because it's a color that I see as a decent contrast against the pink and the white. Then my pink that I've chosen is a little bit off from the pink that is the base coat. It's a little, honestly, I think this one's a little more hot pink, and I think the other one is more like a magenta. But seriously, like when you put two side by side, they look almost identical. But the idea is to have it less of part of the design and more of an accent to the existing color. So my secondary colors are almost always just an accent. Like, I think when it comes down to like percentage of lines, my secondary color usually occupies about 30% of the design, if you want to look at it that way. Now, in this instance, honestly, it needs a little bit more to it. So I'm probably going to add a tertiary color. I know we didn't know we were doing math today, but here we are. Yeah, there are words for these things. But a tertiary color is just a third color to the primary and secondary. Yay, magic. And I think with this one, I'm probably going to add ivory because that's what I use to outline the pink lines. The stripey looking lines, not the pinstripey lines. Which is another thing. I typically, when I'm designing these things, when I do a design, I do my best, and I mean my absolute best, to make the design as close to only one color as possible. And I know a lot of stripers, especially like the ones who were around back in the 90s, they love the high contrast, high visibility with like 5 and 6 color designs. And I don't dislike those. I just think for me, I like seeing if I can work within the confines of a single color. It is something that I developed when I was studying music theory, which is saying more with less notes. It's very much derivative of something that I think I picked up in one of the classes from Rick Wright. If you don't know about Rick Wright, he's the keyboard player from Pink Floyd. I was not going to get into a clinic where David Gilmour was teaching, so that was my closest second. And I think that that's where I picked up on this idea of minimalism. But the notion of it, for me at least, is to try to express as much as possible with the first color and then just use the secondary color to fill in the gaps. And in this instance, because they don't really stand out, because there's just so much pink and white as the background already, then I consider throwing in a third color. But the plan isn't to do that. The plan is to try to get this to stand on its own just with the first color so that the secondary color could just add. So I hope that explains something. It might be utter nonsense. I don't know. I might be just rambling into a microphone at this point because when we get into theoretical stuff, most of it is, here's what I try to do, here's what I kind of do, and then I throw it out in the trash as soon as something weird happens. In this instance, though, I actually adhered to it. So, I mean, there's that. So, on one hand, yes, do everything that I said. On the other hand, do the opposite. So, that's just how that works. I found that almost every form of anything that I do, whether it's filming, whether it's music, whether it's this, I have figured out that all rules involved in this are meant to be broken. So, yes, do it. Also, don't do it. So, do whatever you want. Make yourself happy. Enjoy it. But make a mess. Have fun with it. Till next time, stay moist, my friends.